Welcome to another explainer from the National Cybersecurity Agency of the Maldives. Today, we're going to unpack one of the most significant, most mysterious incidents in modern history, one that completely changed the game in cyberspace. We're talking about the shadow brokers. So let's just start with a question that really gets to the heart of this entire story. This isn't some movie plot or a hypothetical scenario. This is exactly what happened, and the shockwaves were felt all across the globe. And to see just how fast this all spiraled out of control, just look at this timeline. It's pretty staggering. In less than a single year, we went from a mysterious group showing up online to a full-blown global cyber catastrophe, and it all started with just one single breach. Okay, so who exactly are the main players in this digital drama? Well, on one side, you have the shadow brokers, this group that basically just appeared out of thin air. And on the other side, the victim, the Equation Group. Now, that's pretty much universally understood to be the public name for the NSA's most elite, most advanced hacking division. So from the very second that first leak hit the internet, the huge question for intelligence agencies everywhere was, who did this? The investigation kicked off immediately, and it really became this massive cyber whodunit, leading investigators down two very different and frankly very compelling paths. And pretty quickly, those two paths settled on two main theories. Was this an external attack by a rival nation? A big geopolitical power play? Or was it something way more chilling for the NSA? Did the call come from inside the house? All right, let's dig into that first theory, the one that points a finger squarely at Moscow in a highly coordinated, state-sponsored operation. This quote, it really says it all. This is how the U.S. intelligence community saw the leak. This wasn't just about stealing some information. No, this was public, it was calculated, and it was meant to be deeply intimidating. It was a threat. And when you look at the circumstantial evidence, you can see why this theory gained so much traction. First, the timing. It was almost too perfect. It dropped right when the U.S. was debating how to respond to Russian interference in its election. It felt like a clear message. Hit us back, and we'll expose your secrets. And then there's just the sheer guts of it. Publicly dumping the NSA's crown jewels, that's a move most people think only a powerful country would dare to make. Then, a big piece of forensic evidence seemed to surface. The Kaspersky connection. The theory goes like this. An NSA contractor took classified tools home. The Russian-made antivirus software on his computer, Kaspersky, did its job and flagged these tools as malicious. U.S. officials are pretty sure that Russian intelligence was able to use that flag to then swoop in and steal the files, creating a direct link. But as strong as that Russian case seems, there's a whole other side to this story. Another theory that suggests the breach wasn't from the outside at all. It was a betrayal. It was an insider. Now, this is where it gets really interesting from a technical standpoint. See, the NSA's best toys aren't just sitting on any old server. They're on air-gapped networks, which means they're physically disconnected from the internet. Hacking into them is incredibly difficult. And the files themselves? They looked like a clean copy-paste job. It looked a lot less like a sophisticated remote hack and a lot more like someone just walked out the door with a thumb drive. And then there was the weird personality the shadow brokers created online. Their English was so bad, linguists were convinced it was fake, like a native English speaker trying way too hard to sound foreign. They were cracking jokes from American movies and named themselves after a video game character. It just didn't feel like a foreign spy agency. It felt a lot more like a disgruntled American. And the whole insider idea became terrifyingly real when a contractor named Harold Martin was arrested. Now get this, he had hoarded 50 terabytes of classified NSA data at his home. 50. That's a mind-boggling amount of data. Now, he was never proven to be the shadow broker, but his case was shocking proof that, yes, insiders absolutely could and did just walk out with mountains of top-secret files. So, okay, we've got these two competing theories, Russia versus an insider. But you know what? For the rest of the world, it didn't really matter who stole the tools. What mattered was what happened next, because once these digital weapons were out, the consequences were absolutely catastrophic. At the very center of all this chaos was one single tool, Eternal Blue. The easiest way to think about it is like a digital master key, a key that could unlock millions and millions of computers all over the world that were running Windows. The NSA built it, but once the shadow brokers leaked it, that key was available to absolutely anyone. And you can see exactly how this digital pandemic just exploded. Within a month, cybercriminals took Eternal Blue and attached it to ransomware. The result was WannaCry, and it spread like wildfire. We're talking hospitals in the UK shut down, businesses crippled. And just when everyone thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. The NotPetya attack used the same exploit, but it wasn't after money. It was a wiper attack, designed just to destroy data, and it caused billions in damages. So, where does that leave us? After years of investigations, with all this strong evidence pointing in totally different directions, what do people believe today? Who really were the shadow brokers?
Well, for most experts, the answer isn't theory A or theory B, it's a hybrid of both. It's the theory that just seems to make the most sense. It suggests an insider was the original source of the leak. They got the tools out of the NSA's secure system, but then Russian intelligence got their hands on those tools and were the ones who strategically weaponized the leak, creating the whole shadow broker's persona.
So let's just recap the evidence in this whole cyber whodunit one last time. For the Russian state theory, you've got the powerful motive, the perfect timing, and that Kaspersky connection. And for the insider theory, you've got the simple fact the files came from an internal air-gapped network. That whole faked American persona, and the fact that we know for sure insiders were walking away with tons of data. And that brings us to the big, and frankly, kind of scary final question. Because at the end of the day, we might never know for sure who the shadow brokers were, but what we do know is their legacy. They showed the entire world just how risky it is to build and stockpile these incredibly powerful digital weapons. Because once they get out into the wild, you can never get them back. Which leaves us with the critical question we're still facing today. If it happened once, what's to stop it from happening again?